Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing another tier list, but this one is a little bit more different, a little bit more interesting. It's going to be the best civilizations for beginners or for new players in Age of Empires 2. So if you guys are brand new, or if you guys are beginners, or just looking to kind of improve at the game, I will give you guys the best civilizations, the ones that are the easiest to play, that will get you the best success at a low level. And yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. So without further ado, let's hop right in and take a look at the best civilizations for beginner players. Starting off with the Aztecs here. Now the Aztecs, usually I would say it's a very strong civilization, but it is a little bit more tricky to play because inherently it's a meso civilization. You don't get access to knights, so right off the bat it's not going to be the easiest one to pilot, and for that reason I would say that Aztecs are probably not the strongest civilization for beginner players. I'm going to throw it right in the C tier. Like I said, it's not very straightforward. You have quite strong infantry, you have strong monks, but it's hard to use monks, and then you don't have cavalry, you don't have the strongest archer units. It's kind of unclear how we want to play Aztecs, and so if you're a newer player, I highly recommend you stay away from the civilization unless you want to start, unless you love eagles and want to start learning how to play with them. Next up, we've got the Bengalis, I believe. If I make any mistake, I'm actually streaming, so it's going to be live. We got the Bengalis here. Once again, this is a newer civilization, so if you guys are just coming back to the game, you probably don't know anything about this civ. But it's a civilization that's extremely hard to play. It's a lot about like booming up to the late game. You have to play very defensive early game. You don't get a lot of bonuses early on. That being said, though, in low-level games for newer players, you tend to have a lot of time. So I'm conflicted with Bengalis. It is a civilization where if you get to the post-imp, if you get to late game, you're gonna have a lot of success, but it's just a bit more unique. So I'm gonna put it probably top of C tier. You don't have any knights, you don't have any camels, so it's very awkward to play the civ. But Bengalis in general have an amazing late game. So if you do want to pick Bengalis up, I highly recommend you check out my ultimate guide for them first, and then you probably just try to survive till late game, and then try to go for some of their powerful options there. Alright, next up we've got the Berbers. Berbers are a fun civilization actually, and probably one that's quite easy to play, just because it's really easy to understand your win condition as Berbers. Like, you have really strong knights, you have only like one bonus that you can use in mid game, which is your cheaper stables, and you also have a really strong unique unit with the camel archer. They're also good early game and good late game, so they pretty much have like no weaknesses. And yeah, comment from the chat, it's also easier to lure boars with Berbers, because your villagers move faster. So honestly, I'm tempted to throw Berbers in S tier, but just to be a little bit more conservative right off the bat, gonna throw them in A tier. Your biggest weakness with Berbers is probably the fact that you might have a little bit of trouble against like Halberdier Siege, could be tricky. But if you just get in the habit of using skirmishers or just like camel archers in general, you should be okay with Berbers. And remember, knights will counter pikes in early castle age. So if you have like 10 pikemen and if you got 10 knights, you're going to be easily winning that fight. If you have a low HP knights, you can heal it up. So you're going to be good to go with the Berbers there. Next up is the Bohemians. Bohemians are an interesting civ. Is it a good civ for beginners, though, is the question. I'm tempted to say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it's pretty easy to understand what your good options are. Like, you have really strong halbs, you have amazing siege, the hoofness is crazy. But they have like really weird options. That like the food monks are kind of weird. Bohemians' economy is kind of hard to manage. You do get the free mining upgrades though, and like the monk upgrades can feel a little bit weird for your villagers. I'd probably say Bohemians are B tier. I think their units are very easy. Like, they have very powerful units and they're very easy to use, but their economy and their development is a bit hard to understand. But like hand cannons and castle is gonna be like really strong against like a lot of things, and like chemistry crossbows are obviously really strong too. Britons, S tier. The easiest civ in the game to understand. Your archers are amazing and you outrange everyone. Enjoy. It's so simple to understand Britons. You have good economy. It's just like if you want an archer civ, like an easy to understand archer civ. As much as I hate recommending Britons because like everyone does it, Britons is just like the bread and butter. It's so easy to understand what you have to do. It's so easy to understand why they're good. So like Britons are just going to be S tier all the time. Yeah, nothing much to say about that. Next up, we've got Bulgarians. Bulgarians are an interesting one. I'm not sure where I want to put them, but I think that they're pretty easy to play to some degree. They're hard to play at a high level, but I think they're really easy to play at a low level because you have a lot of options that are quite easy to understand, like the free two-handed swordsman to counter anything, infantry, like any halberdier. You just go two-handed swordsman, you're super solid. You have amazing cavalry. The Conic is a fan favorite. Krepos can help you a lot as well. I think Bulgarians are probably A tier, honestly. They're very easy to play, very straightforward. It's going to be quite solid. Next up, we got Burgundians. I don't know if I want to put Flemish Revolution in the hands of anyone below like 400 ELO. Like if you're below 400 ELO, Flemish Revolution is a dangerous tool. It's very dangerous. I don't know if I trust you guys. It's probably illegal to use it if you're below 400. Okay, so I just want to point that out, guys. It's a very weird part of the civilization. I don't want people like abusing it or getting too used to it. But aside from that, it's obviously not the only part of the civ. Aside from that, Burgundians are like fairly simple to play. I would say it's probably top of B tier, just because like going for Cavalier and Castle Age is a really strong option. It's really easy to understand. Having the option of going for Hand Cannoneer that's really strong to counter Halbs just leaves them with a very easy answer to counter Halberdier, which is very important for low-level players. They don't understand how to use mobility more often than not in late game. So you need the counter. Like in high-level games, you could go around Halbs and like just raid and like how to play around them a little bit more. But in low levels, if you have Halbs against cavalry, usually the cavalry player just panics, takes a bad fight, and dies. I've seen that way too much, guys. I'm sorry. But like I said, so I like calf civs that have an inherent and an obvious counter to halberdier. That's kind of my criteria personally. But feel free to disagree, of course. You guys know low level better than I have. Last time I played a low level game was probably when I was doing my Smurf accounts and my Road to 2K series. And aside from that, I just watched games and like do coaching. So yeah, that's kind of my criteria. But yeah, Burgundians B tier. Economy is a little hard to understand, but not really a big deal, and their units are quite straightforward as well. Next up, we've got the Burmese. Burmese are probably not a beginner-friendly civilization. Now, I'd probably put them top of C tier, probably ahead of Bengalis. Probably ahead of Bengalis. I feel like it's hard to understand why Burmese are good in early game. Like the free wood upgrade, you're not really making use of the power spike too much, for beginners. But Burmese do have some really fun options. They have amazingly strong elephants, which can be insane. Strong infantry. People love infantry. Actually, no, dude, I'm up in Burmese. People love infantry. So I'm gonna put them really high. Like halberdier and champion is really good actually for a lot of beginners. They love it. And elephants are also a fan favorite. So you know what? Burmese is making it up. I thought it was not a good civ for beginners, but it actually is. Yeah, quite a strong civ there in Burmese, and a lot of fun options for beginners in that as well. Halbs, champs, you can also mess around with Arambai as well, but it's a bit harder to use that unit. Next up, we got Byzantine. Byzantine is another S tier civilization. I'll tell you why. People love trash units. For whatever it is, saving gold is just like a huge thing for beginners. Like they just love like saving gold or like not using gold. So, Byzantine definitely high up on my list. You also have like really strong options throughout the entirety of the game. It's very easy to understand how to play them because you know what units you want to make. You get the discounts. So it's very obvious what you want to be using. And like beginners and survivalists love pikes and skirmishers. Like you guys just love them. So yeah, Byzantine definitely up there. Next up is Celts. Now, if you watch Huang, you might think Celts are S tier for beginners because he does the same brain dead thing every game, and like you can probably replicate it if you want to. All it takes is like 10,000 games and selling your soul to the market, and you'll master Celts like Huang does. But not everyone's ready to make that kind of sacrifice, right? So Celts is probably not going to be that high up on my list. And I actually think it's a very tricky civ to play. I'm going to put it in C tier. I'll tell you why. Their units are very hard to make work. They have really strong infantry, which, like I said, is a fan favorite. I know that. And really strong siege. But that's pretty much all they have. They don't really have very good other options. I can't imagine anyone winning a tournament game with Celt Paladin, for example. And just in general, the civilization is a little bit awkward in a lot of cases. But if you're a fan of siege and infantry, it is going to be a good option. Just going to be a little bit harder to play. you guys are also not making use of the wood bonus as much as the competitive player or a high level player, because games tend to drag on a little bit. Next up is Chinese D tier. For whatever reason, the Chinese start is just like impossible to explain to a lot of beginner players. You guys find it very hard to manage with the Chinese start, and in general, I personally don't think it's that hard, but it's just, why bother learning that when you can learn any other civ? You know what I mean? Like, it's not that hard to do the Chinese start. I feel like it's overhyped how hard it is. It's really not that hard. You just need it to be explained to you properly. Like, a lot of players, especially beginner players, don't understand that you will get a 2-village lead with the Chinese start. They don't understand that. So I think if it's explained to you properly, Chinese will actually seem pretty good. But there's no reason to learn that when you can just learn any other civ and just be completely fine. So for beginners, stay away from Chinese. Next up, we got the Cumans. Nothing really too crazy about the Cumans, but the 2TC boom is, like, it's pretty hard. It's a pretty unique concept to explain. But I actually think you can have a lot of success with a 2TC boom. I'm going to put Cumans probably not top of 8 tier, probably here. Just because I think if you can understand the game plan of a 2TC boom with Cumans, you can just beat a lot of players who will give you a lot of time. Like, they're not going to attack you, they're going to give you time, and Cumans is the best thing to abuse getting early time. Yeah, so that's kind of my opinion about Cumans. If you just take them a 2TC boom, you're going to beat a lot of players. Just like that. Oh, what symbol is this, guys? I think it's Dravidians. Yeah, next up we got Dravidians. Actually, I think Dravidians are kind of good for beginner players. I'm going to probably put them right here. I'll tell you why, guys. Skirmishers, again, a fan favorite for beginner players. You guys love skirmishers, and Dravidian skirmishers are amazing. You also get boost of wood at the start of every age, and I personally prefer that over other bonuses, just because it's easier to understand what you need to do with a boost of wood than it is with like an extra 15% of wood. Because like what happens if you have like faster wood income is that you just stockpile like 1,000 wood. But if you just get an extra 200, it gives you a spike, and it gives you like the ability to do things you wouldn't normally be able to do without stockpiling a ton of wood for you, like at random times. Dravidians, they have the big drawback of not having knights, or like having a shitty stable, but aside from that, Dravidians are very, very solid. What Elo's beginners? It's whatever you think it is. Yeah, I'll leave that up to you guys. If you think you're a beginner, then if you think what I'm saying makes sense for you, then you're a beginner. And totally unrelated notes. Hello MBL, I hope this list makes sense to you, bro. Next up, we've got the Ethiopians. Ethiopians are kind of like Britons in that they're like really easy to understand, but they're not as straightforward as Britons because they have a lot of other options that are like a little bit more interesting, I think. So it's a more interesting civilization, but it's not as straightforward. Like the extra range of Britons is way more oppressive than the faster fire rate of Ethiopians. So yeah, probably it's just weird because like Ethiopians are like, you have amazing siege, amazing good halbs and amazing arbalest. I'll probably put it top of B tier. Yeah, it's like a really easy civ to understand as well, and you get free pikes, which, like I said, it's really important to have like a counter for cavalry. Like halberdier are OP. Halberdier are OP at low level versus cavalry because they just take the fight, or they just like don't attack you. But it's very rare that they're gonna run around and raid, So yeah, I'd say Ethiopians are like pretty simple to play. Put them right around there. Franks, S tier, probably easier than Britons. This is a civilization I recommend to everyone learning the game. Franks are the bread and butter to like how to actually understand Age of Empires 2 because their units are very simple to understand. It's very simple to understand how you can transition in Imperial Age to counter a halberdier because you got the throwing axeman, you got the hand cannoneer, skirmisher is an okay option as well, heavy scorpion. You have everything you need to counter halberdier, and then you have very strong paladin that kills everything else. So it's very easy to understand how to play Franks. And it's a civilization that puts you very far ahead just by naturally playing. So it's really strong, beginner-friendly civ, in my opinion. And yeah, I think Britain Frank, it's very easy to understand both of them. They're very similar in that sense as well. Next up, we got the Goths. Goths are probably the best beginner civilization. If you want a civilization that does extremely well in beginners, better than Franks, better than Britons, it's Goths. basically, why Goths work in low level and not high level. In high level, Goths are a slow civ. They're very slow to start. In low level, you have a lot of time. And Halberdier, like I said, is completely OP because Cav players don't know what to do if you make Halberdiers in most cases, unless they have an obvious transition. Goths have Halberdier to counter any cavalry civ and like even pikemen, and then you have Huskarl to kill any archer civ. It's the easiest civilization to understand. If the other guy's making infantry, you just make better infantry. You make champions. It's very easy to understand what to make, and infantry is extremely popular in low level. So, in my opinion, Goths is probably like one of the best, if not the best, civilizations for beginner players. It's obviously subjective, but I think if I'm making a tier list of like what are you gonna have the best results with, I think Goths are up there. I mean, the chat's saying no stone walls. It's not good for beginners. But I don't think you need stone walls. This is a beginner list, guys. I'm not talking about like a 300 elo stone walls all the map and then waits for 2 hours because he's eating dinner at a friend's house. Like, this is not like really low level. This is just like beginner, the game's a little bit slower, things are not happening as fast as possible. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You guys let me know. Do you guys need stone walls that much? I don't know. We'll see. Next up, we've got the Gujaras. You already know I'm insane. I'm no beginner. I know these things. Or is that Hindustani? Pretty sure it's Gujaras, honestly. Whatever, bro. It's Gujaras. Gujaras they're an interesting one. I don't think, they're not beginner friendly. They're probably D tier beginner friendly because you're not going to understand how to make use of the sheep bonus early game. What's going to happen? You're going to try to use it and you're going to fail. Like, that's what's going to happen realistically because it's really hard to make use of this bonus properly. And I think that it's very hard to ignore this bonus as a beginner because you want to use it, but you're not going to know how to, in my opinion. That's kind of my take on Gujaras, at least. Next up is Hindustani. Hindustani is pretty simple. They did get nerfed recently, though. But you don't have knight access, so that can be tricky. But your camels are very strong, so it's another civ that's very easy to understand. It's like good camels. Okay, perfect. Counted halberdier, perfect. You have hand cannoneer. You have everything. But it's no knights is a bit tricky sometimes. I'll probably put it bottom of A tier. You'll probably if calf civs are really popular and you need a counter to calf civs, use Hindustani. It's like so simple. It's like one of the best counters to calf civs because you just go camels, and if they go halberdier, you go skirmisher or hand cannoneer. It's very simple to understand. Next up is the Huns. Not having houses is a very big bonus. I'm gonna put it probably top of A tier, maybe right below Berbers, I think. So the idea with Huns is that not needing houses is really good because a lot of times you guys get housed a lot. So you guys forget about making a house, and not having to worry about that in a game is extremely good. So it's one of the best ways to learn the game. The only downside to learning a game through playing Huns is that if you start learning other civs, it's gonna be hard to adapt to not building houses. Me personally, I learned the game by playing Huns. I think it's a great way to start off the game. Next up is Incas. Incas, like any other Mesociv, is going to be a little bit trickier, a little bit lower on my list, but I think that Incas are probably the easiest to play Mesociv. I'll tell you why. You have an answer to everything, and this is something that beginners need to understand, they need to rely on. So if you think about Aztecs, you don't really have a good counter to everything. You have a few options, but a lot of your counters are like monks and pikemen with garland wards. It's not as strong as just flat out, pure halberdier or flat out what's the unit called? Kameyuks to counter cavalry. So Incas are more straightforward. Slingers to counter infantry. Arbalest to counter. Arbalest skirm is counter to range units, and then Eagle Warrior to counter. Arbalest skirm as a power unit. Eagle to counter range units, and then Kameyuk to counter cav unit is what I meant to say. So Incas are actually pretty straightforward and pretty easy to understand. I'll probably put them ahead of Dravidians. This is a pretty good spot for them, I think. Next up, we've got the Italians. Nothing special with Italians comes to mind, honestly. I'm not going to spend too much time on them just because I don't think it's that interesting. But it's one of those archer civs that's Genoese. It's, again, very simple to understand. Genoese counters cavalry. You have a pretty smooth start because you get the discount on your age ups. And you have a very wide tech tree. So pretty standard. I like it. Probably ahead of Dravidians right here in B tier. Malay. Oh, no way. No Malay, guys. Probably D tier. Yeah, Malay is not very good beginner civ. It's very hard to understand how to use their bonus. The only thing about Malay that's good for beginners is their... Oh, that's Japanese. Okay. Okay. God. Yeah, that's the worst looking Malay symbol ever. That's Japanese. Japanese are in D tier because Malay suck. That's what's happening. That's what I meant to say. Okay, Japanese. I mean, I think Japanese are a pretty beginner-friendly civ, honestly. It's one of those, again, easy to understand because you have amazing halbs, amazing infantry, good arbalest, and you have really strong trebuchets, which are fan favorites. I think Japanese are good for beginners. I'll put them bottom of A tier. And like you literally just watch Spirit of the Law. Like you just watch him. Honestly, he'll guide you through everything. He likes Japanese, so you're gonna feel like good about yourself watching his videos. It's just a good situation to be in as a beginner. Next up is Khmer. Oh, Khmer are a very good civilization because if you're like a beginner player or T90 who has trouble placing good farms, Khmer is one of the civilizations where it doesn't matter how you set up your base, it's always going to be very efficient. And for that reason, I'll probably put Khmer pretty high up on my tier list. Their units are a bit trickier though because it's hard to understand how to like where their power unit is. But yeah, you do have like really strong siege. Ballista elephants are amazing for late game. And those are units you could get to because the games tend to like drag on a lot. And early game, like Khmer are pretty easy to understand. You can play everything. I don't know. I'll probably put them right behind Hindustani. Yeah, I think Khmer are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Yeah, you don't need buildings as well. So it's just a smooth bonus. Yeah, you have their house as well. So they're very unique and very different, but they are easy to play. So it's not new player friendly because things are unique, but it is beginner friendly. Koreans. Koreans are a civilization that is, yeah, pretty straightforward, but not the most like good civ for beginners, just because it relies a lot on like structures and like towers and stuff. So if you like the kind of like tower style, then sure, go for Koreans. If not, I wouldn't really recommend it. I don't think it's a good civ. So like, I don't think you're gonna have a lot of success with Koreans. That's just my opinion. I really don't think you're gonna have a lot of success. Like war wagons are nice, your late game siege is nice, but aside from that, you don't really have a lot of options. So unless you like towers, then go for Koreans. If not, I actually not a huge fan of them. But you know, it does come down to personal opinion for a lot of these, and especially for Koreans. Next up is Lithuanians. Oh, I love Lithuanians for beginners. It's so easy to understand what you have to do. Like it's literally the freest civ to have a game plan with. And having a game plan is really important for beginners because a lot of people panic. You panic mostly when you don't know what to do. But when you know exactly what you need to do, it's very easy to not panic. And Lithuanians is like top of my list. I'm going to put them in S tier here. Top of my list for like just easy game plan to understand. You want to go for relics and go for cavalry because you get extra attacks. That's really good. Late game, your trash is amazing. Halberdier, skirmisher, they move faster, they have extra armor. Perfect. You have amazing cavalry units. Your unique units really good. So it's really easy to understand how you want to play Lithuanians, and you also get 150 food for free at the start. So yeah, it's just good all around. Next up is Magyars. Magyars are probably pretty high up on my list as well, just because it has an amazing late game. But I will say it's a little bit more tricky to use Magyars than some of the other civs here. I'll probably put Magyars top of B tier. Yeah, they're a little bit more tricky to use than some of the other civs, I think, just because you don't get an eco bonus, so it's going to be a slow development, which could be a little bit tricky, but it is easy to understand that you have to use cavalry, and your late game is really good, but for some reason, I don't trust, like, heavy CA Hussar, is that a good beginner composition? I'm not sure if it is. Like, I think that's a good competitive gamer, like, competitive game composition. But for beginners, I think you guys prefer like halberdier, siege, like big elephants, like slow push, you know? Not like mobility compositions. That's my take. Is this Malay now? Yeah, this is Malay. If this is not Malay, I retire, bro. Forget about it. Okay. Also, I will mention that Magyars don't really have an obvious counter to halberdier as well. Because like, if the guy's on halberdier, you're on cavalry, it's hard to transition to like cav archers. It's really hard. So that's kind of one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of Magyars. Malay D tier, I already talked about it. If you guys want to hear more about Malay, be sure to rewind back to when Japanese was being picked. D tier. Next up, we've got Malians. Yeah, not a good beginner-friendly civ. It's very hard. Malians is civ. It's very hard to understand why they're good, where you're getting your discounts. It's very hard to understand where your power spikes are. You don't have a good late game whatsoever. You have too many options. It's overwhelming. None of them are really like overpowered or anything like that. So it's a civ that gets a lot of its strength from flexibility, but it's not simple flexibility like Byzantine. It's like complex flexibility. A lot about like timings, transitions, double gold comps. It's very hard to understand. For that reason, probably top of D tier. Yeah, it's a civilization that takes a long time to understand how to make it work. And it's not that it's a bad civ. I just feel like you have easier success with like Bulgarians, you know. Next up is the Mayans, and Mayans are going to be probably bottom of B tier. It's easy to understand as from like a meta perspective what you want to do, because it's mainly an archer civ that has a good transition to eagles to counter skirms, but it is very heavy like double gold comp oriented some of the times, and you know it does have no knights because it's meta civ, so it's going to be a bit no stable in fact. So it's going to be a bit weird to understand, but Mayans in general are like pretty okay if you're a beginner. Mongols. One of my favorites for beginners as well. Again, it's kind of easy to understand what you want to do because you have that power Mangadai, like that powerhouse Mangadai and like amazing siege. It's not like Magyars where like you need to like watch your transition. Mongols just make Mangadai, bro. It's so easy, and you also have a really good early game. The biggest downside of like the scout is insane. Like having a big scout is really good, bro. Just click that auto scout button and go AFK. Like with Mongols, you're gonna be good to go if you just do that simple step. And then yeah, so like smooth early game, really nice scouts, really easy to understand late game because of Mangadai. I like Mongols. Next up we got the Persians. Persians are probably just gonna find themselves in like a C tier spot. They're not a very powerful civilization in general, and they're not that special. And beginners love trash bows, but trash bows are really not that good. So I feel like you guys will overly rely on them. I'm probably gonna put them ahead of Celts but below Koreans. Douche guys, don't douche. It's just the worst thing to learn the game. You're gonna just ruin the experience for the opponent for no reason. So like, don't douche. But if you do want to douche, definitely check out my build editor. I'm just kidding. I don't have a build editor for that. Next up, we got the Poles. Poles are a hard civ to understand actually, but you do have really nice farms, which I know is a fan favorite. Because like people love like the satisfying farms. I don't know. I'd probably say Poles are like pretty good. I don't know exactly where I'd put them though. But they're pretty easy civ to understand. Like you know where you're getting the bonuses from. The cheap knights are really good as well. I can see you having a lot of success with Poles actually. The stone, like mining stone, getting gold as well. It's like really good. Like they're a bit harder to understand, but their bonuses are really OP for like low level. Dude, I think I'm gonna put them very high actually. Probably right here, top of A tier, because like I said, it's very hard to understand like the transitions and like defending against high pressure, but like you're not gonna get high pressure if you're a beginner. Like usually it's gonna be like a little bit of pressure, but not very sharp. It's not gonna be very fast. You're gonna have time to react. You probably have a few farms set up, so you have a lot of time with Poles generally speaking, and you have a really easy time and a really easy game plan. And they have really overpowered options like forward castles and stuff. I can see you easily winning games by just picking Poles, mining a ton of stone, making knights, and going forward castle. And if they go for pikes, you make Obuk and smile. Pretty good game plan. Next up is Portuguese. Just use gold units forehead. Pretty good game plan there. The thing is, Portuguese is really not the strongest civilization. I'll probably put it top of C tier. It's really flexible. Nothing wrong with it, but I just don't recommend it. I just don't think it's a good beginner civ because you don't like. Again, trash units tend to be like stronger in beginner games, and like, yeah, players don't really like to go double gold comp. They like to conserve gold. So if you like Portuguese, it's more about like spending the gold and making gold units, and like Vitorias are harder to understand as well. Okay, next up. We've got the Saracens, I believe. Saracens are... Dude, I'm kind of stuck on Saracens. I don't know where to put them. Part of me says the market's really nice. Yeah, market's really nice. Yeah, it's market is very nice, and like it's kind of easy to understand what you want to go for. But they have a lot of weird options. Like Mamluk is a power unit. Camels is nice. I think their texture is really wide. Yeah, I'll probably put them like top of B tier. Probably right behind Ethiopians. Yeah. Noobs never use the market, really? I think noobs use the market a lot. They float 1,000 resources, no need for yeah, but like beginners is not necessarily like terrible players. Some of them are like looking to like improve and stuff, and like looking to start learning the game. And if you're looking to start learning the game, Saracens is pretty helpful, I think. Alright, Sicilians, not a good civ for beginners in my opinion. Yeah, probably D tier honestly, because like you don't have a tower, sergeants are whack. First Crusade is like weird. I don't see Sicilians doing a whole lot. They just got nerfed as well, so I highly don't recommend Sicilians. Yes, you have like you take less damage from counter units, but you're not immune. So I feel like people would either not know how to use that bonus or use it too much and it being bad. Next up, we got the Slavs. Not a very powerful civ. It's probably like a C tier civ, probably ahead of Persians. But you do get the cheaper castles actually. Cheaper castles. I like Slavs over Portuguese because you get like really strong halberdier, good infantry, which is a fan favorite. Cheaper castles, like I can see that being insane. People love to have like castles everywhere. Could even be a B tier, but I'll probably put it top of C. Let me think here. It's actually I'm gonna replace them with Burgundians. Like Burgundians are way harder than Slavs. Yeah, Burgundians guys drop to C tier, guys. Yeah. Is this Spanish? If this is Spanish are pretty high up on my list for beginners, but not too high. Yeah, probably somewhere B tier. I probably prefer Spanish over like Incas. Yeah, because like Spanish have all the tech tree, really good. And you also get like everything you need: gunpowder, good siege, paladin, conquistadors are like it's easy to understand that it's a strong unit. Yeah, I like Spanish. You also get the tanky villas, which I think is really good for late game. Yeah. Bump over Burmese just for the BM. No Expo, yeah, but it's not a huge deal, I think. Spanish is fine. Alright, next up we've got Tatars. Tatars are an extremely difficult civ to understand, I feel like. It's hard. I don't think you're going to have a lot of success playing Tatars, personally. They have a good late game, but it's kind of like Magyars, but it's even worse early game than Magyars. Because it's hard to understand. Like, you go crossbow, it's good. But then, oh no, it's bad. I don't have arbalest. I'm not using that. Oh, I can go cav archers. Okay, I'll go cav archers. But then you have zero transition later on, because like cav archer hussar is not bad, but it's harder to understand. It's just a harder civ to play. And if you want to play cav archer plus plus knight or cav archer plus hussar civ, just use Huns. It's way easier than Tatars. But that being said, it's not a hard civ to play. It's just not. Yeah, it's just not the best overall. I don't know. I'll probably put it over Mayans. I can say it's just not the best cav archer hussar civ for beginners. Next we've got the Teutons. Oh, Teutons are really good for beginners, I think. Amazing infantry, good siege, good cavalry. It's easy to understand what to do. The biggest weakness is like dying to archer civs, guys. But Teutons are going to be pretty high up on my list. Probably right ahead of Hindustani. Or like, yeah. Probably ahead of Cumans as well. Probably ahead of Hindustani. Because like I said, Cumans, if you learn how to 2TC boom, are still insane. So I think, yeah. Teutons are really strong for beginners. Your knights are really good. Your infantry is really good. Your economy is really good. And yeah, it's easy to understand what you want to use, like what you want to do as well. Turks. I think people would panic when they see that they don't have spears and skirms. I'll probably put Turks in, yeah, probably bottom of C tier, maybe ahead of Aztecs. Like the only good thing about Turks for beginners is the fact that you get great gunpowder, and like if you're into gunpowder, great. Turks are fine. Like Turks are fantastic, but not having pikes and not having elite skirmisher, that's like a really big loss for Turks, and it's gonna be hard to understand what to do to counter specific units with Turks. So, and once again, it's a hussar cav archer civ for the most part, so it's weird. Next up is Vietnamese. Imperial skirmishers gets a really big bonus on this list because people love like unique stuff like that. So I think Vietnamese is like another civ that's like, it's good late game for a lot of beginners. And you also get like Rattan archers, which are pretty good. I think Vietnamese are probably going to be somewhere near Dravidians for the same logic. Probably ahead of Dravidians and Italians, just because you have a better stable than Dravidians. And you're also like potentially more powerful than Italians as well. Also seeing the TC. Yeah, seeing the TC early is amazing for Vietnamese. I'm happy with them here as well. But like, honestly, knowing beginners, you guys are going to see the TC and still run into it. That's what's going to happen. Comment down below if that's ever happened to you. I promise I won't laugh at you, but others might, okay? Next up, and finally, the last civ on the list is the Vikings. Not a very good beginner civ. Handcart means nothing for free because you guys stockpile a lot of resources anyways. The late game is not very good. You do have a strong infantry, which is something special, but overall, probably going to be like bottom of C tier for Vikings. Maybe ahead of Aztecs, but maybe not. Yeah, maybe ahead of Aztecs. Again, Aztecs really don't like they have to rely on like monks as well and stuff like that. Alright, you guys, I think we've done this tier list quite nicely. I'm pretty happy with the final result. It's pretty symmetrical, which I didn't actually plan for, but like 5, 5, what is that? It's 5, 10, 9, and then like, you know, the remaining civs, I don't know, I can't count. What is that? 13 middle, so pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the tier list, and yeah, it's a pretty unique idea for a tier list as well. Best civilizations for beginners. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you guys did like the video down below. If you liked it, like it, okay? And if you want to see more content, definitely be sure to subscribe. I know a lot of you guys are not subscribed, so subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, peace, stay safe, see ya.